Perhaps nothing else underscores more completely the difference between Roman Catholic and Protestant theology than the sacraments, both in what they are and in what they mean. However, I once had a fairly conservative New Testament professor in seminary who had taken part in ecumenical conversations between Catholic and Protestant scholars who declared that we really are closer than we often give ourselves credit for, but differences still remain. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, October 5th, 2023. First, let's talk about what Catholics and Protestants count as sacraments, then talk about what, from a Protestant perspective, makes a sacrament a sacrament. In the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches, there are 7 sacraments, compared to just 2 for us Protestants. The Catholic and Orthodox world count as sacraments baptism, confession, the Eucharist, also known as the Lord's Supper, confirmation, matrimony or marriage, ordination, and anointing the sick, often called extreme unction. Protestants, by contrast, recognize just 2 sacraments, baptism and the Lord's Supper. Both Protestants and Catholics and Orthodox understand the sacraments to be means of grace. How that works is part of what separates the 2 sides. For Catholics and Orthodox, generally speaking, the sacraments objectively convey God's grace. What that means is that grace comes to a person through the sacraments, much like medicine that enters the body and causes healing. Protestants, on the other hand, generally understand the sacraments to be signs of a grace that only God gives. The sacraments, for Protestants, point believers to God and help strengthen their faith, but the simple act of receiving the sacraments does not itself convey God's grace in the objective sense. For us, it's not like taking medicine. We call the sacraments means of grace because through them God communicates with us and nourishes our faith. What this means is that for us, there is no mystical thing that happens that confers salvation when we take the sacraments. This is, of course, an oversimplification of Catholic and Orthodox belief, but there is a sense in their theologies that simply receiving the sacraments themselves actually confers salvation. By contrast, we Protestants look at them as outward signs of an inner reality. We look at them as confirming on earth, in a way that we can see, touch, and taste, what God has already accomplished for us in heaven. God saves us. Sacraments reassure us. We Reformed Christians in particular talk about the sacraments as signs and seals of God's grace. That is, they are signs pointing us to God's gracious intentions. And they are seals that assure us that we belong to God. By seal, we mean something like an embossed emblem. Think a corporate seal or one of those wax seals with an imprint on it on a formal document or on an envelope. The seal indicates who the document belongs to or who sent it. So with the sacraments, we come to know that we belong to God. The sacraments seal that we belong to God. So what makes a sacrament a sacrament? For us Protestants, it is something that is specifically instituted by Jesus Christ and that there is warrant for it in the Bible. Jesus himself was baptized, and he is the one who gave us the Lord's Supper. The other sacraments recognized by Catholics and Orthodox, while important and significant, we do not count as sacraments, in part because Christ himself did not institute them or command them to be done. We Protestants count these other 5 sacraments as rites, but do not hold them on the same level as baptism and the Lord's Supper. Yes, we highly esteem confirmation and marriage, ordination and confession, even the anointing of the sick, and we recognize how meaningful they are in the lives of people. But sacraments, we do not believe them to be. Yes, Jesus attended a wedding in Cana of Galilee, but there is no evidence that he himself officiated at that or any other marriage. And yes, Jesus called disciples and commissioned them for ministry, but there is no evidence of his having formally ordained them. So for us, it is baptism and the Lord's Supper. So Next time we celebrate one of the sacraments, think on these things. They are holy mysteries that strengthen our faith. That's why we call them means of grace. Tomorrow, we'll continue our project of building up our theological vocabulary with a very important term, sanctification. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.